What if I told you that Congress just made $150 billion available through the One Big Beautiful Bill that's now law? Well, they did. There's $150 billion in defense spending that went through the reconciliation process. All that means is there's a fancy term for Congress used special authorities to carve out some funding. Where did this money come from, and why did it just go through a simple reconciliation process? Well, I actually think it was mostly money that was identified through the DOGE program, the DOGE office, that went and found money that the administration no longer agreed with. They carved that money out, and they said, hey, we're going to use this money to go pay back the national debt. And Congress said, au contraire, mon ami, we are not going to use this money to pay back the national debt. We want that money spent to stimulate the economy. So Trump said, well, if you spend it on the stuff I care about, then maybe we'll spend it. So the administration crafted a list of over 200 different topics that are now priorities for the administration, and they place funding against each one of those topics. But this is very, very different than any other type of appropriation or reconciliation that's happened in the past. Normally, the government is fed. So if you think about the program elements that each office work off of, and when appropriation comes in, Congress says, you will have this much money on X program element. That money gets loaded onto the program element, and then it gets executed against. There's a program element manager that's responsible for looking at those program elements. There are program managers and contracting officers and finance managers that are responsible for handling that money. The finance guys are responsible for time, purpose, and amount. The program managers are responsible for cost, schedule, and performance. The contracting officer is responsible to make sure that that funding is used for the right purpose, that it's a good deal for the taxpayer, good deal for the entities that are participating with us, and that everything is fair and reasonable. So there's a whole bunch of equities that go into the process. But with this new reconciliation bill and the way they did it, it's totally changed the game. No longer is Congress telling the government or telling the military, here's your food on your plate in terms of money, please go eat it. And if you don't eat it all, I'm not going to give you the same amount of food or money next year. This time they're saying, I created a bunch of money. It's available to be spent in these categories. If you're interested in spending it, please bring us a plan. So the way I expect this to work out, and again, very few people have any insight into how this is going to work. The only reason I have unique insights into it is because I think it's going to model the congressional interest item process that has happened for decades. So what I believe is going to happen is that Congress has already put the money out there. Now, program offices will have to go and ask for that funding. The way they do that is by creating a spend plan. Spend plans outline what they're going to spend money on, the acquisition strategy they're going to use to spend that money, and the program element the money should flow through. You'll even say what color of funding you want the money to be it R&D or O&M funding. This is very, very different than what's been done in the past. So we're asking the government and the program offices to go feed themselves instead of, here's your food on your plate, go get it. There's a whole buffet of over 200 things to pick from that are categories of spending that the department cares about, and they're all outlined in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Of those priorities, I believe any office will have the opportunity to reach in and say, I have a project for umpty-ump innovation, and that fits into this bucket of funding that Congress made available. They send the spend plan up, it'll go through their program element manager, also known as a PIM. That PIM will interface with the Office of Management and Budget, who has that money currently out of the Treasury, and they'll look at the funding and they'll say, this has a plan for execution. It is in alignment with the bucket of funding that has been made available by Congress, and the acquisition strategy is sound. Approved. I believe that's how it's going to work. So what have I been doing? Helping companies find a way to go create these spend plans and work with the different offices that already love their technology. This isn't out hunting for offices to try to find a product market fit for the tech. This is working with offices and companies that have already found each other that are saying, yes, I would love to have your stuff. I would love your technology in the hands of my warfighters if I had the money to do it. Well, the money's there. Now we just have to go get it. There's hardly anybody in the department that understands what the process will be at this stage, but I'm quite confident it's going to follow the congressional interest item process that we've been using for the last decade. In that process, Congress will look at the POM and they'll approve whatever the president's budget is. Sometimes they'll say, I think you should spend a little more or a little less in that area. Anytime they say they want to spend a little bit more, that's considered a congressional plus up. And there'll be a little plus in the bill with a dollar amount next to it. So they might plus it up $10 million or $15 million for a specific project. They never name the company name in there, but they name the project. When that bill hits the desk of the financial managers and the Office of Management and Budget, they look at it and they're like, I wonder what this money's for. They don't have any of the history of the funding. So what they typically do is look at the program element that it's assigned to, and they go and ask the office, hey, what's the intent for this money? Do you have a spend plan for this? Do you have a way you're planning on spending this money? Do you know what the congressional intent is for this funding? That office will have a program manager in it, maybe a financial manager and a contracting officer, and they will craft that spend plan and they'll send it back up the chain. The Office of Management and Budget will look at that spend plan and they'll say, in many cases, they'll actually ask the congressional staffers, hey, is this the intent you had for this specific line item in the bill? And the staffers will give a thumbs up or thumbs down. Well, in this case, with the One Big Beautiful Bill, they did not put any money onto program elements. So the Office of Management and Budget may not actually know an office to go and ask, hey, do you have a spend plan for this? The categories are generally pretty broad. Now, there are some offices that did get significant funding. I believe DIU got $2 billion in the One Big Beautiful Bill. So clearly DIU is the place to go ask, hey, what's your plan for this funding? And I believe the Office of Management and Budget is doing that. However, they're not going to accept, we're going to go do innovation activities with this $2 billion. I believe they want to see it on a project by project basis. And that's a game changer because it's causing the government to do a little bit more work on the front end to say how they're going to spend their money. And the money's only going to be made available to those that have a plan, an acquisition strategy. And let me tell you, if it's a direct acquisition strategy like the ones I'm trying to teach companies to do, it's going to be much more efficient and much more likely for success than if I go up with the plan of I have to run a 2-year competition to find the right vendor and then award the funding. Congress did us a favor with the One Big Beautiful Bill. They made the funding available through September 30th, 2029. That is not how regular funding in the government works. Normally, funding in the government is assigned to a program element and it gets put in that program element with a color. What does a color of money mean? It means it's either research and development dollars, which has a 2-year spend horizon. It's O&M money, 1-year spend horizon. It depends. It could be Milcom, which are 5-year spend horizon, but they already have a color of funding associated with it. In this case, there's no color of funding because the money has to be made available through September 30th, 2029. Because has to be made available for that long, there's no color of funding that would fit. The moment you color the funding, you have to follow fiscal law. So they leave the money uncolored until the spend plan comes in. To me, this is a golden opportunity for any ambitious program office that has projects that they know are shovel ready, that they can go with the technology, with the companies and get something delivered to the warfighter quickly, and it fits inside those funding buckets. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. Normally, when we have our POM or we have our budget, 90+% of it is already spent. It's going to existing contracts and it's going to places where they've been planning for this for 5 years. So they know the money's coming and it's just same old, and it's hard to get the new technology in place. Under this new process, and again, it's only for the $150 billion that are part of the reconciliation bill, it creates a golden opportunity to have access at the entire defense budget. That entire $150 billion that is. Now, what could this lead to in the future? Well, you just saw that the JSIDS process got killed in the past week. What's next on the chopping block? Maybe the POM process, maybe some of our traditional funding mechanisms. I believe that the One Big Beautiful Bill and how they're handling the reconciliation funds represents a prototype of what a zero-based budgeting action could look like for the federal government, for the Department of Defense. And yes, we're going to have big dollar amounts for buckets of funding that are priorities for the administration, but I don't think we're going to have money loaded on the lines and told you better spend all your money, and if you don't spend all of it, you're not going to get as much next year. This is a total shift in terms of the cultural understanding of how the government works, how the bureaucracy functions. Right now, you have a workforce that's been decimated by the DRP. They lost a significant number of people. And many of the people that they did lose are people that were high performers and knew these systems like the back of their hand. So they're not motivated to go do the extra work. You also have a workforce that's been told, as just a generalization, that they're not up to par. They're not the best of the best. They aren't out there as good. They're not as good as industry. They're slugs. You've heard all this rhetoric from the Hill, from Congress, from the administration. And I can tell you, as a person that worked in the federal government as a civil servant, there's some dead weight in the department, but most of the people that work there are high quality patriots. Now, they were there for two reasons. They cared about getting the mission done, and they cared about the job security that the federal government offered them. Well, the Trump administration has removed that security pillar of what we all envisioned the deal was. Why would we take less pay than what we could make in the commercial marketplace for the work that we do? It's because we had the security pillar. We didn't have to worry about our jobs being at risk given the political tides. In this case, that security pillar is gone and people have left, and it's created a lot of animosity amongst even the existing workforce. So they're not motivated to go do the extra stuff that's required of them for the reconciliation bill or the one big beautiful bill. So ultimately, it's an opportunity. If you have a good relationship with your program office and you understand the tools and mechanisms that the government has available to go get this funding unlocked, you can motivate those program offices to go submit spend plans for projects that are going to have a direct acquisition pathway for your technology or services. I help companies do this. So if you're interested in learning more, please like and subscribe this video. And if you want access to my free playbook on how to do direct acquisitions for your technology, please send me a message on Instagram to Vince_Pecoraro. Thanks. Have a great day.